So you may remember this Zero Seats campaign. Obviously, we talked about it a lot. So if you watch Lotus Eaters at all, you probably heard us talking about it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the origin of this. This was, of course, started by Dr. Nima Parvini, that goes by Academic Agent online. And here's the video that sort of kick-started it, where it was an AI-edited Rishi Sunak talking about how the Conservative Party should be destroyed because they've betrayed this country, which is true, they have. And
sorry, keep going.
And okay, and and that was actually created by
Torin Faub something?
Yes, up here. My stream deck is not working. It's all going wrong. It's like election night all over again. But this person right here, to give them credit, they were the ones that created the video for him. So well done to them.
He also did our election preview teaser video and a whole bunch of other ones, actually.
Okay.
So yes, if you're watching, thank you very much. That was some great work right there.
Skilled individual.
Mm-hmm. So here he is, the man who started the meme, talking to Jacob Rees-Mogg, and in this interview, he actually dropped the 0 seats to the Conservative leader of the House of Commons, which I think is quite the thing to do in the interview, and did it subtly, so he sort of didn't pick up on it. And funnily enough, following this, Jacob Rees-Mogg lost his seat. So maybe it worked a bit like a curse where, you know, he said 0 seats and he disappeared. So
Mogg's all right. He's back on GB News tonight. He's okay.
He's certainly not one of the most egregious Conservatives. I'll give him that.
No.
I think the criticism being levelled at him in particular is that he should have put his faith first. If he stuck to his faith, he would have been more conservative in his policies rather than saying, I separate the two. My faith will not dictate how I vote. Well, it should dictate how you vote, mate.
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of the time the Conservatives have been guilty of putting party politics above their own personal principles. And I think
the nation.
Exactly. And I think that is very short-sighted and part of the reason why they've done so poorly. And so this meme has carried on to lots of other outlets. They've been talking about 0 seats for the Conservatives. And it's been great. It's been quite a successful thing. And I'm glad to see that it's been spreading. And of course, our election night coverage, which I am incredibly proud of, and all of our team, it was not only great fun, but I feel like everyone involved enjoyed it. But yes, we went with the theme of 0 seats. You can see it. That's not right. In our coverage here. Yeah. So here it is. So it's been pretty important. And of course, our election stream was the biggest election stream in the UK, which, I'm going to take this small moment to brag a little bit.
Absolutely.
But barring the BBC, but they're next.
Yeah.
We're
defund the BBC.
But yeah, I think we got to about 80,000 live viewers at one point, which is pretty big for, late at night, isn't it?
Well, and that we didn't have 4.3 billion in funding.
That's true.
Yes.
But we beat Channel 4, ITV, GB News,
Sky
LBC,
News,
Talk Radio. We beat them all.
We didn't have any advertisers. It's all funded from you people at home. So you made this happen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's well done.
But it's not just about bragging for us. It's about the fact that people are fed up of the legacy media. The mainstream media is the establishment. They're part of the problem. Yeah. And people are awake to that.
And so well done for making it happen. This couldn't have succeeded as much as it had without you people at home. And let's talk a little bit about the results, because the Conservatives did not achieve 0 seats, but this is the lowest number of seats since the formation of the modern Conservative Party in the 1830s at 121. So the camera is in the way.
But they did get 0 seats in Wales.
That's true. So if you're Welsh and you said 0 seats, it actually came true. So
and Cornwall and Devon.
Oh, okay.
That's true. South West Devon was still Conservative. That's
did it?
Yeah, that's my home constituency.
Oh, we wall that bit off then.
But yeah, sorry about that.
Who's your MP, by the way?
It used to be Gary Streeter, but it was someone, a lady this time that I didn't recognise.
Yeah. They let ladies run for Parliament these days.
Yes.
But yes, they still lost 251 seats, which is massive. So it certainly wasn't a good time for them. And I thought it'd be good to talk about some of the senior Conservatives that lost their seats so we can gloat a little bit and enjoy it and make the most of what could have been, better, but it's still somewhat of a victory, I feel.
Yeah.
So Obviously, one of them is former Prime Minister Liz Truss, who I think actually people warmed to after she came out of office and started repeating a lot of talking points that we have been saying. And she's also been very useful in understanding how the civil service and the sort of Bank of England and all these sorts of unelected bureaucrats get in the way of elected politicians actually doing stuff.
I mean, given that she's a Tory, I quite like her, but it is a phenomena that when politicians leave office, they always become a lot more sensible.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, I've always liked her. I don't support her policies. I think she's a massive neo-lib, but I've always liked her.
Yeah.
The problem is, once she left office, she went more conservative. Like she dropped her neo-lib policies and went more in line with where the rest of us are. So I think that's populism, but it didn't work out for her.
Mm-hmm.
However, if she'd have remained in office, we might have been in a different position than what we're in right now.
That's true.
Nobody wanted Rishi Sunak.
So I have two main criticisms of her. I did quite like her sort of economic budget. I thought that was actually quite good. However, she should have stuck it out. I think that stepping down was short-sighted. And I also dislike that she comes out of office and then starts saying good things. If you can't say what you believe as the Prime Minister, then what office do you need to speak your mind?
She needed better quality advisors. Because there were some of us who saw that Bank of England stitch up as it was unfolding, and she clearly didn't have anyone who could see it in her team, and therefore she accepted the mainstream media line that it was her fault, and it wasn't. It was a stitch up.
Yeah, the reason the moment she got rid of Kwasi Kwarteng, her tenure was up. She could not back herself when she got rid of the person who was responsible for her economic policies, which was all that she stood for. You know, she had the IEA, she had the, who else did she have? The TPA. She had all of those neoliberal economic think tanks backing her, giving her great policies. But you're right. She needed political advisors as well. She didn't have the sound.
People who actually understood the underlying policy.
And how to implement it and when to implement it. Not just say, this is what we're doing, and then shake up the system, because the system did not want her in place to begin with. So, of course, they were going to do everything they could to eject her.
And the money men have many ways to hurt you.
Indeed.
And another person who lost their seat was Penny Mordaunt.
Yes. Sorry, I should have.
I'm glad about this
Thank
one.
God. This woman... The reason she gets on my nerves so much is because so many conservatives, so many members thought she was an actual conservative. They were like, yeah, we need Penny as our leader. Like, this is the woman who wants to trans kids. This is the woman who thinks that a trans man is a woman, or vice versa, whatever it is. She's delusional. She's captured because is it her twin brother or just a regular brother is part of the LGBT alphabet spaghetti community. So she is not conservative.
Well, her brother came out and said that the Conservatives have been the most oppressive to LGBT people in history.
Oppressed
when
in what
it's
way?
the opposite way, surely.
Most oppressive? What a load of nonsense.
They've done the most for them of any government
But
in
it's
history.
the alphabet people who are the most oppressive people. I feel oppressed
Exactly.
by the alphabet people.
Yeah.
I can't walk down my capital city without being attacked
flags
by
everywhere,
child
yeah.
mutilation flags.
Yeah.
Even when I was doing a shop in Tesco, it's just like, this place is a safe space for LGBT people.
Where's the safe space for Christians? Not even the church anymore, especially not in this country.
Which shop is unsafe for them?
Well, indeed. John Lewis had the child mutilation flags. Even Marks and Spencer's had child mutilation flags. Tesco had them. Sainsbury's famously, which is why Lawrence Fox said he will no longer patronise there. Which supermarket is not safe for LGBT people? Tell me and I'll shop there.
Now, actually, I know her constituency, Portsmouth. I think she's Portsmouth North. Now, Portsmouth, I had no doubt that they were going to kick her out, because all during COVID, that place was a sort of hotbed of revolution. It had one of the lowest vaccine uptakes of all the constituencies. And you just saw graffiti everywhere, which was anti-regime, say no to the vax, reject it, stuff like that. So I was never in any doubt that she was going to go.
I mean,
But yes.
she dresses well and she holds a sword well, but that is not criteria for
Oh,
leading the
she can
country.
give a base-sounding speech, but it's a pretense.
She's just not conservative, is she?
No.
Let's be honest. Also, Jillian Keegan, another person who is gone.
Oh, thank God. Thank the Lord.
Yes.
She's famous for being the education secretary who swore on air. She also oversaw the handling of the reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete scandal, where she closed a bunch of schools seemingly needlessly because there was concrete in there that's a bit crumbly, which seemed a bit of an overreaction. And after kids had lost lots of school time from the COVID times, the lockdowns, it seemed a bit of an overreaction to my mind. But obviously you guys also have gripes with her as well.
I can't remember who. I was going to say she's one of the worst education secretaries, but it's a low bar. You got Justin Greening, Nicky Morgan. I don't know which one was the worst one. All of them since Michael Gove were awful. But I sat on a panel with her back in the days before I was out and out conservative, when I was a bit more moderate. And It was me, her, and a lefty, and she was siding with the lefty on every single thing against me. I'm like, what's going? You're supposed to be a Conservative MP. Why are you fighting against me? We should be on the same page. I can't stand people like this. Not Conservative at all. Just a waste of a seat.
It's quite remarkable that you managed to lose Chichester. If anyone who's ever been to Chichester, it is distilled middle class, upper middle class. I mean, it is a sort of quintessential Tory seat, and for years it had been regarded as basically, unlosable for the Tories. So for her to manage to lose that is genuinely impressive. Yeah, and in fact, it was Aaron Ice Cream, wasn't he? He went there and basically spoke to people on the streets, and they were just as fed up as it was everywhere else, because for a long time this sort of massive immigration had been thrown into the big cities where you didn't really tend to notice it that much, because who goes to big cities apart from people who live there? But when it's sort of in your face on the streets of Chichester, the people reacted to it. And she was an education secretary who didn't educate her party on the electoral maths of lockdowns, record taxation, mass immigration, wokeism.
Well, she didn't understand her remit. She was a minister without a portfolio, essentially. Just one of these careerist politicians that would take any ministerial job. Doesn't matter what it was, how much she cared about it or knew about it, she would just take the job.
Well, she was a Cameron appointee, like so many of them. So, I mean, the tide really turned when Cameron came in, because the first thing he did is rig candidate selection.
Yeah, woke.
So that woke candidates got in.
A-list.
So basically, anyone who's joined since 2010 has to be suspect and is probably a wokester.
It was affirmative action, which should be illegal.
Well, she also did nothing to curb the indoctrination of children in schools as well, in gender ideology and all of that sort of stuff that goes on.
But she worked against her government. So the government said, look, I mean, to their credit, they said, look, this has got to stop going on in schools, and we'll issue this guidance so that schools, because schools were like, well, we're not going to do anything until the government tells us what to do. And the government said, okay, you've got to stop transing children. As the education secretary, she should have put the guidance out to schools to say, you can stop. Here is the guidelines. But she didn't. She let them get on with it.
And they're pushing at a young age. I mean, I have to vet, I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and I have to vet her books when she comes home from school, because she'll be given a book and I'll just quickly check it out, and it's like, oh, it's a story about my 2 mummies, right? Okay, no, we're not reading that.
Oh, gosh. A child has one mother and one father.
Yeah.
So, on the topic of questionable things, Liam Fox is gone. He's known for being the most scandalous human being ever to have existed, I think.
Is he?
He's had lots and lots of scandals. So he had the best man scandal, where the best man at his wedding attended lots of his meetings as defense secretary, as a sort of unofficial advisor. This wasn't, none of the people involved in this were notified of his presence. And he was actually there at the majority of his meetings, and they were in business together quite a lot of the time. And this was
his handler. What was going on?
Well, I think they were just making money together. But he was found in breach of the ministerial code. And then in 2020, it was revealed that Russian hackers had stolen trade papers from his email account, and then they were leaked ahead of the 2019 general election and used by the Labour Party, ironically enough. And then in 2022. He was accused of receiving a £20,000 donation from a COVID testing firm, which he then recommended to the government during the pandemic. And then in 2023, there was the lobbying scandal where he had been paid £16,000 for just 21 hours work by a lobbying firm, which then he lobbied on behalf of to the Prime Minister.
He's quite fun down the pub, though. When I used to work in Westminster, I used to go down the pub with him. So
he's a nice enough guy.
Buy lots of rounds, I imagine. Yeah.
And he was a good Brexiteer. But it seems not the most, probably one of the least incorrupt.
Then there is Grant Shapps, which I am very glad to see gone. Obviously, he pushed a lot of the Green agenda and lots of things that he's done. He ran a get-rich-quick scheme under the alias Michael Green. He got caught editing his own Wikipedia page to make himself look better. He cut his own holiday short with his own COVID travel restrictions, and then had to force himself to go into quarantine because he couldn't even adhere to his own rules properly.
Right.
And also, this is one of my favourites, I think. Taking from Joseph Stalin himself, he photoshopped Boris Johnson out of a picture. And if you look closely, you can see Boris Johnson's elbow still remained there.
Oh my gosh.
If you look...
That's so embarrassing.
So you see here, the mouse... Oh, there we go. There, look.
Ah, yes.
That's Boris Johnson's elbow, because he didn't want to be associated with him anymore. So when it was politically expedient to distance himself from him.
Ridiculous.
So that is actually something that Stalin did, which I think is interesting. And then another bad person gone, Teresa Cozier. She was known for being one of the rudest Conservative MPs. Oh. And she was accused of having 184,470 and 97 pence disparity in her expenses between 2022 to 23 and 2023 to 24. And she also oversaw the unprecedented sewage pollution scandal in British waterways while she was Environment Secretary. Mm. So that is rather unfortunate for her. And then another senior person was Johnny Mercer.
Oh, yes, this is the best one. Was he the 77th Brigade guy?
No, that's
no.
T Thomas. Whatever. We'll get to him, I'm sure.
Right.
No, it wasn't him.
You're about Tobias Elwood.
Yeah, Tobias Elwood.
Yes, I thought so.
He's a right Ukraine guy, though, isn't
Johnny
he?
Mercer is he's done a lot of good work for vets, to give him credit where it's due.
I know some people in his team. Got some friends back home because he was an MP for Plymouth, which is my home turf, and he has done a fair amount for veterans because he was veterans minister and he pushed that. And he has been doing a lot for, former veterans in the military, which I respect at least. That is some good work. Though. No.
He came out to campaign for me once when I was standing as a local candidate, and he got there. He's like, "Oh, you expect me to speak to the people? I thought I'd just be giving a speech." Okay, well, no, we expect you to knock on doors like the rest of us, mate.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know what people will make of this, but he did refuse to hand over the names of SAS troops to those who wish to prosecute them for war crimes. That was last year, but I suppose he's out of his role now, so he's not going to be prosecuted for that.
Right. The guy I was thinking of was Tobias Elwood.
That's right, yes.
Did he keep his seat?
No.
Ah, good.
We've also got... Oh, that link's not there, I don't think. Oh, no. Maybe it is. There he is. Michael Fabricant, known for the worst wigs in Parliament. But
I like how he owns it, though.
He does, yeah. He can make fun of himself.
Yeah.
I put that in there for a bit of comic relief. And someone I know you spoke about on election night when he actually lost his seat, Steve Baker.
I asked him to come on here, and he said no.
I can understand why, to be honest. We've given him a bit of a hard time. Yeah. But yes, he was a Brexiteer. He played a significant part in Brexit, and he seemed to get caught up in the Tory party machinery, it seems.
So he gave a post-election interview with Ed Balls, who is the former Shadow Chancellor, and Gideon, who is the former actual Chancellor. And he was talking about the collapse of the monetary system, and everything he said was spot on. Mm-hmm. And Ed Balls and Gideon, they just grinned at him. They clearly didn't have the first clue what he was talking about. So he's actually quite sensible when it comes to monetary stuff, and he sees it. But why he went through that weird woke phase, I'll never know.
I've always liked him, right? So when he first, he was a Spartan. He fought for Brexit, but when he first started going woke, I dropped him a line because I thought it's better to speak to these people privately than to blast them publicly in the first instance, at least. Yeah. And he said, "Look, I've got a constituency that's going a certain way. The demographics changing." I was like, "Yeah, but you do not understand. Critical race theory is the antithesis of conservative values. It goes against everything we believe in." And anyway, he adopted that. And then he started jumping on the trans stuff too. He said, "Look, you don't understand, Calvin. I've got an employee who's trans and this and that." I'm like, it doesn't matter. The truth is the truth. And as a Christian, you should be saying, look, God made us man, God made us female, and he loves us the way we are born. And we're not to alter our image in making an idol of ourselves. Anyway, the whole thing is just, he bends to the will of the people around him, unfortunately. I thought he was a stronger guy than that.
Mm. Yeah, so some more sort of honourable mentions is... Alex Chalk, the former Justice Secretary, Simon Hart, the Chief Whip of the House of Commons, and Robert Buckland, the MP for this very constituency we're in right now, South Swindon.
Did he?
No, he didn't. He was a bit sore, and he was former Secretary of State for Wales. And there are also a bunch of notable names that did hold their seats. Here's a little graphic that the Telegraph mocked up here. So I'm just going to read some of them out. Of course, Rishi Sunak held his seat, although it was in question. He was worried about this, but I think he threw enough money at it. So he got to keep some of his dignity at least.
Shame.
Yes, exactly. Priti Patel.
It's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy Hunt, which I was a bit upset about. Ian Duncan Smith, former Tory party leader.
Pleased with that one. That's good.
Suella Braverman as well. Tom Tuggenhat, who wants to send everyone to Ukraine. James Cleverly, involved in some of the pandemic stuff. Oliver Dowden, I have a personal grudge against for the online harms bill.
Yeah.
I think that is an awful piece of legislation. And yes, he even put in there that he wanted to end online anonymity on the internet, just for bullying and things like that. I think it was just a means of the government controlling the internet because it's one area that they can't control.
I mean, that won't affect me because, of course, my face is out there. But if you work for an employer who is left-wing, which is basically all of them at this point, it just means you can't have a political opinion.
Well, that's exactly it. It would mean that many people watching this right now wouldn't be able to engage in the political process because of how employers enforce their policies, really.
Yeah.
And Kemi Badenoch stayed in as well, as did Gavin Newsom.
I hear that Kemi Badenoch is Gove's creature. That's part of the reason why Gove came out, because he's going to be puppeting Kemi from the background.
Estimate Vey stayed, Common Sense.
Yes, that's true. Robert Yenrick as well, and Gavin Williamson, not Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Get my wires crossed.
Who do you like for Tory leader then? I mean, who do you think is going to make it?
Of those, Suella.
Right. Yeah, I could see it.
I hear Jenrick isn't too bad.
I could see Kemi being popular with the remaining Tories, perhaps. But I imagine they might go in a slightly more left-wing direction.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a safe bet that the Tories will always learn from anything. We should have been more left-wing, including this election loss.
I know. Worst in their history, and they'll make the same mistake again, which works for me, to be honest.
The membership would vote for Suella, Kemi, or Pretty.
I would say so, yeah.
But the parliamentary party will probably avoid any of those. But you're right, Gove has an influence there, so maybe Kemi will be the one that they go with in the end.
He's sort of a Tory party kingmaker, isn't he? He's been suggested that he's been involved in some of the coups going on internally.
Absolutely.
I would not allege that myself.
I would allege that. Michael Gove and Douglas
Smith
have been heavily involved behind the scenes in all of this, all the coup d'etats and all the stuff that's gone on. And they can shoulder a lot of the blame for where the party is right now.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to have a quick look at some of the Tories blaming their historic loss. Grant Shapps seems to think it was endless political soap opera, which I don't think it was. Of course, there might have been an element of that, in that, they're backstabbing their own leaders. There's constant sleaze and things like that. Maybe it's a little bit, but I think one person that did get it right, actually, was Robert Yenrick. And he said, the Tories lost because we failed to deliver. They didn't keep their promises to the public, which I think it actually is true, because migration was one of the central issues of this election, and they didn't reduce it. They actually did the opposite, and they paid the price at the ballot. And it's actually quite good to see. And I think overall, although we didn't achieve 0 seats, and I think Dr. Parvini said that anything under 100 seats would be a 0 seats victory, 121 is still quite a good result, I think.
Yeah, I don't understand his abstract number of 100. Where does that come from? I think having less than 139 was their record loss, wasn't it? So yes. I think for me, that classes as 0 seats. They've had a record defeat. That's great. Like either 0 seats meaning 0 seats, as in they lose all their seats, or 0 seats meaning they have a record defeat. I don't understand the 100 abstract number at all.
What do you think, Dan? 0 seats victory, or
it could have been a lot better if it weren't for perhaps some aspect that we might be coming to shortly.
Sure. Ooh, foreshadowing.
Yes.
But yes, I think the 0 seats campaign was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was good to give the Tories a sort of lashing in a political sense for their failures and their broken promises. And I'd like to see the party shrink further. I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. And if you want to see more of what we're doing, you can check out our election night live stream talking all about the UK election. It was a behemoth 10 hours, and you can watch us slowly unravel. And if you want to see all of the other work we're doing, we post links to everything that we're releasing on our Twitter. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.